So, it's funny. So you're the second person that's actually taken our advice. I had an interview with Marco from Charbet, and he actually went out and got a Yeti as well when he was getting ready to do this. And he was like, "Man, this thing's huge. It sounds awesome." I was like, "See, there's a reason why quality starts coming through."
Absolutely. Well, I had someone else tell me, I was looking and they're like, "Yeah, you got to get one of those. It'll make you sound like Rush Limbaugh." Marco's great though. I got to spend some time with him a few years ago out there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So we're gonna just wait a few more minutes because we've got Fred still to wait on. He's gonna be joining us, and then I've already kind of pushed us out to some of the Patreon folks. So we're gonna have probably a few people join and watch this online live and stuff like that too.
Okay, yeah, I had a couple people message me about the show tonight.
Oh yeah, I know. Dave
did.
He's been hyping it up on his Patreon page. I've been getting all those notifications. So,
oh, nice. I need to get on there. I haven't got on the Patreon page before. I've heard y'all promote it a bunch, and he's also talked about it some with his reviews.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a way to two things, right? Most importantly, to be selfish, that it does help fund all the work that goes into this. But thankfully, a lot of people they like the content. They wouldn't necessarily do it if they thought it was shit content.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But the other way is that you can, it helps justify all the time that's spent into everything that we're doing. Oddly enough, right before this started, I've been spending probably the past 3 hours cutting Thursday's podcast that has to go out. And funny enough, so it was a one that has Michael St. Pierre and Aaron Stein in it, and we talk about some white whales and kind of what you do to transform bunkers. And he was talking about, oh yeah, I had this brown bunny and I bought it for 500, and then I immediately had to get rid of it and I sold it to Jamie Farris.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that one. I've gotten more recently though. Sometimes you don't always pull for those 140 proofs. You can only have a couple of those.
Mm-hmm.
Shortens the night real quick.
Yeah, I think so. It makes it go by quick, but it's fun.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm gonna lock my door real quick just so I have to make sure I don't have my daughter creep up here later.
Okay.
Yeah, I've noticed David's been giving you a lot of praise on his page about all the Russell's picks and everything like that you've been doing as well. So
yeah, he's a huge Russell's guy, and so
just a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit. We've got a couple new ones we're pretty excited about coming in. So we just picked a few weeks ago with Eddie.
It's always fun to go with him.
Oh, absolutely. It's amazing how he can hit that barrel twice and the bong goes about 6 feet tall, and you sit there and you bang and bang and bang and bang, and then he comes up and wham wham.
Yeah, he's got a lot of practice.
Oh yeah. I'd say a little bit.
Yeah, he's done it 1 or 2 times before. That's a good way to look at it. All right, let me make sure that.
So what all do you want to go over tonight or chat about?
So we'll do a few different things. We're going to talk we'll do a little bit about barrel picks. We'll kind of talk about the retail side of the market as well, because a lot of people love just hearing from a store owner's perspective about what is bourbon doing in today's market. What have they seen change? What has gotten asinine? Like how many calls for Van Winkle do you get a day?
Oh, yeah.
That sort of shit. We'll kind of touch on some of that. There's a few other things that people also had submitted beforehand. What do you look for when you're deciding to carry a new product? What are most whiskey and bourbon shoppers looking for? The average shopper versus the aficionado. What are the current trends that you see? Let's see. That's kind of like the same question. What makes you decide not to carry a product, whiskey or bourbon? That's pretty much the same thing as what I said before. And then if you could give advice to a smaller craft distillery, what would it be? So those are just some things that were submitted beforehand, but it'll be
Okay.
kind of ad hoc. It'll just be a conversation.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'll answer those the best I can.
I'm sure you'll be all right.
Yeah. I don't know much we don't carry. When it comes to whiskey, it's kind of, but yeah, we have some in here that we're like, what was I thinking when I bought those? A lot of it also depends.
You want to call them out on the show, or you want to leave their innocence?
No, I'm going to leave their innocence. Some of them are in state.
Yeah, that's understandable. You got to have a little bit of hometown pride, but
yeah,
it doesn't always sell, so that's kind of get stuck.
No, it's one of my bar owners texted me earlier and said, "Hey, can you use 5 bottles of this?" And I said, "No, I've got 12 myself." And he said, "Well, I guess I'm gonna make a whiskey punch with it."
Yeah, and the other thing is that so this is not going to be airing for quite some time. This is, I believe, the 9th podcast that we've recorded so far between last week and this week. And then we've got, I think, 6 more to go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, yep, 6 more to go for the rest of this week. And we got 2 or 3 more next week. And so that basically gets us sometime into probably April or May of the recording calendar. Maybe even June. I don't really know. I gotta look at it. So keep time sensitivity to a minimum. Don't be like, oh yeah, we've got this barrel coming in next week, because it might not be until, like I said, April when this actually airs or something.
Sounds good. Yeah, that works for me.
That could also be a strategy, though, Kenny. He could be like wanting to try to get people in his store next week. So,
hey, Fred, how are you, man?
What's up, brother? Do I look okay?
Yeah, you look fine. Your camera was great a second ago. It was just right on your crotch.
I know you do like that.
How's it going, Fred?
Not bad. You got any more good picks to send my way? I feel like I haven't heard from you in a while.
I do. I just did one with Ditson. We came in recently. It came in and went out real quick. We did one for our birthday, OESK. So it was nice. But nice. I've got some good, always good Russells, good Knob Creek rye right now.
Yeah, I don't remember I don't remember what year it was, but I did a review on one of yours, and I had people calling me like, "You asshole," now people know about him, and no, we can't get him anymore. And yeah, you do a good job. We'll talk about that. Hey, did you get this yet?
No, not yet. I've been meaning to subscribe to that. I saw it when I was back there with.
Oh man, we got to take care of you. Get on that.
Get on that. A couple weeks ago, I was up there in Kentucky, and I saw them at the gift shop at Willett. So
they were in the gift shop at Willett already?
Yep. That was September, 21st, something like that.
Are you sure about that? You sure it was this one?
Oh, maybe not that one. It was the one before it. It was the first one.
This was the first one. Yeah.
Okay.
So that was the other another magazine.
Okay. Well, maybe I was confused with it.
That's okay.
When is that one?
This one just came out.
Okay.
So it's I'll email you offline, but I'd love to get it in your store.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Definitely interested. All
right. And the people behind it are some of the people who work with me are Ole Miss people.
Oh.
So, are you Mississippi State?
I'm a Mississippi State guy.
Okay. Well, I understand that.
It's okay. I have lots of friends that went to Ole Miss.
Yeah.
I have partied in the Grove at Ole Miss, so
I think most of us have at some point.
Never have.
Oh, you definitely should at least once.
Yeah, I don't think Oklahoma is going to be. Or you're in Oklahoma State, right? And
that's right.
Yeah, mm-hmm. I was like, I don't know how often Oklahoma State will be playing Ole Miss down at the Grove, but
we've played them in a lot of bowls. Man, they have our number. Yeah, Ole Miss has our number. Mississippi State, we've beaten, I think, most of the time, but yeah.
Yeah, we're good. Maybe 1 out of 4 years.
Yeah, well,
average, but
you've had some talent there. We
have. Sometimes it's trying to get them to play together.
Yeah.
But I don't think anybody's going to play with Alabama this year. Those guys are just stomping people.
I think Ohio State's got a shot.
Yeah, Ohio State maybe. I thought Oklahoma would, but then they kind of laid an egg against Texas.
You can never trust anything from the Big 12. That's just a giant shit show of like can't fucking tackle. You know, hey, there's a guy running at me. Let me tackle him at his shoulders.
Trying to sound like you don't want an all SEC championship again.
No, I would be if it was right, I would. You know, I just
Georgia looks football. Pretty good. They look pretty good.
Yeah, Georgia looks strong, but they're gonna get caught up in the East, and I could see Kentucky beating them.
We can only hope for the day.
Yeah, you heard it here first, folks.
Cool. So let's go ahead. We'll get going. I kind of gave Jamie a rundown that this isn't, like I said, it's very it should be a little like non-time sensitive because we don't know really when this is going to air. So we'll talk about store picks. We'll talk about his store. Jamie will definitely kick it off asking you about how you kind of got hooked on whiskey as well. And then we'll talk about retail markets, that sort of thing. And we'll just kind of have a good conversation. It should probably go 45 to 55 minutes, something like that. I think that's probably good timing. And kudos, you had not joined yet, Fred, but he actually was one of the few people that read the email, and he actually went out and bought a Blue Yeti. So that's why his audio sounds so damn good.
Nice.
Yeah.
I try to follow instructions.
What happens when you buy the right equipment?
Well, we don't see him.
Yeah, I didn't know I needed a camera.
Yeah.
So
we got halfway there.
Yeah.
That's all right. Kenny makes me do the video too, and I'm just I'm fortunate. I'm actually wearing clothes right now, so.
But we don't know if you're wearing pants.
This is true.
Yeah, we could play the game. Is Fred wearing pants right now?
Well, we got a shot of his crotch earlier, so we know.
That's true. That's true. Thankfully he was wearing pants.
Yes, thank you.
I'm just trying to keep it real for the bourbon fans out there. We all know what a good crotch shot does for folks.
All right, so we will get it kicked off. So Jamie, how it'll go is Fred and I will talk for about 30 seconds to a minute, maybe 2 minutes, and then I'll sort of lead you in. And do you want to be known as the owner, proprietor, Lincoln Road? What do you want to be known as?
I mean, whatever. The owner's fine. I mean, I am the owner, me and my wife.
Lincoln Road Package Store, is that what you like to be called, or just
That's
Lincoln
right?
Road?
Yeah, Lincoln Road Package.
Okay. And then where in Mississippi are you?
Hattiesburg. So we're in the same town as University of Southern Mississippi.
Okay.
Go Brett Favre.
That's right.
All right. I think it'll be fun. I think it'll be fun to talk
to the Favre family a little bit, I bet. Sorry, Kenny.
Oh no, it's okay. Is it going to be like a Ray Finkel joke where you kind of see the billboards like as you pass through the town?
Yeah. No, there's not. There's not any billboards at all. Not like hometown of Brett Favre or actually he's from Kiln, Mississippi, so he just played football here and lives here now.
Oh, there we go. But I think that'll be another good subject to bring up is like how you got Hattiesburg on the map as well. So
that's a big statement right there.
We'll see if you live up to it.
No pressure.
Yeah. Welcome back to another episode of Bourbon Pursuit, the official podcast of bourbon. Kenny and Fred here talking about store picks and about retail stores. And this is one with a guest that we have never had on the show before. However, anybody that has been around bourbon for quite some time is probably aware of his store. And Fred, we were kind of talking a little bit before we hit this record button here that you had actually done a review of one of his store picks at some point in the past as well.
Yeah. So when I was a reviewer for Whiskey Advocate, I was clued in on this this store in Mississippi called Lincoln Road Package Store. That was really getting a lot of steam, and and people were going out of their way to buy these picks. So I was like, I got to see what this guy's all about. And I reviewed several of his picks, and this was really at a time when when a lot of people didn't know about store picks. So I'd say 3 to 5 years ago, and I was amazed by them. They were fantastic. They were easily, like a top 5, some bourbon in my glass for that year. I mean, they were phenomenal. And then, I would taste them a year later and a year later, and they continue to have that incredible complexity. So he has like this gift, or he's bribing people at distilleries or something, but he's bottling a lot of good bourbon with his name on it.
And the good thing is that we talk about this a lot. People that get caught up in the chase of limited releases and stuff like that, we keep telling them all the time, like, just stop. Just don't go for it, because if you can find people like our guests, or you have the opportunity to know a liquor store owner, and you can actually help or sway these barrel picks, or the liquor store owner and their palate, and they have good barrel picks, that's really the best place to find some of the greatest whiskey on the market today.
Yeah, it's also a little tapped at the moment. You have brands like Four Roses. Four Roses, 5-6 years ago, when you did a barrel pick there, you would get to taste 10 barrels, and if you didn't like one of those 10, they would roll in some more. Heaven Hill used to just bust out 12, 14-year-old juice like it was nothing. And so now you have to, the store owners have to work a little harder to get good barrels, from some of these more, traditional distillers. But other brands like Barrel Bourbon and Catoctin Creek and people like that have opened up a little bit. And so you're starting to get some really nice barrel picks from places you wouldn't normally think of. And it is a treasure trove if you know where to look.
Yeah. And not only that is, you're talking about that. We've even seen a lot of single barrel programs sort of die off. A lot of them, as you had mentioned, from Heaven Hill, some from Buffalo Trace. So it is becoming a harder program to kind of get into.
And here's what I'll say about that is that when you hear someone say they're no longer doing it, that just means they're no longer doing it for you. They're still doing it for somebody, because let me tell you something. There are some accounts folks aren't turning down. No one's turning down, Bill Thomas, Jack Rose, or if they are turning him down, they're making up for it with something else. So there are a lot of accounts that no one would dare turn down. And, Jack Rose, Cannon, just throwing a Vegas hotel out there like Bellagio, these are accounts that no one's going to want to say no to.
And we might have one of those accounts on the show here tonight. So that's a good segue to introduce our guest. So tonight we have Jamie Farris. Jamie is the owner of the Lincoln Road Package Store in Heidelberg, Mississippi. So Jamie, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's always good to have a few different angles that we're going to talk about tonight. First off with store picks, second with the retail side. But before we really dive into that, I kind of want to give folks an idea of who you are. How did you get into bourbon? How did you get into owning a liquor store as well?
Well, so my brother actually opened the first liquor store in a dry county in Mississippi, in Hattiesburg, back in 1994. So that's kind of how I've been involved with the liquor business for that long. And then an opportunity came up to open one of my own here in an area town that was doing some expansion. And so that's where we kind of took advantage of it. And we started expanding into wine and really had a tremendous wine selection. Well, our wine customers started asking for some higher end scotches and more and better scotches. And it kind of bled into scotch and then on into bourbon. And then we started just having the trouble of getting, as we were talking about earlier, the allocated whiskeys. It was starting to get where we couldn't get enough of them to, make our customers happy. You get 3 bottles of this or 6 of this, and you got 12 you're trying to make happy. And then that's when we discovered and started doing the single barrel private barrel pick programs.
Now take me back to Dry County, Mississippi. Were you like going to moonshine shacks and getting jars of the good stuff made in the hills, or what was that like?
No, it just meant you couldn't, at that time I was, 14, just doing the stock for him. And so it just meant that you just couldn't go buy beer or whiskey or vodka or anything in those dry counties until the city expanded its city limits and it became wet. Well, you're still surrounded by, we have 3 counties that are dry surrounding where we are right now.
A lot of customers from there, I bet.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they got to travel in to get it. It kind of reminds me back in the days of college when Lexington couldn't sell beer or anything on Sundays, and so we'd have to drive all the way to Louisville to just buy our beer if we had no school on Monday or something like that. We could have an excuse for a party night. So I'm sure you get that every day, though.
Yeah, we couldn't buy cold beer in Starkville when I was there, so we'd have to drive about 20 minutes to buy cold beer.
Mm. So we talked about that a little bit before we started, Sue, because you're a Mississippi State guy.
That's right.
Which is cool because we're all at least 2 of the people here are SEC fans. Fred's the outlier here.
Yeah, I mean Oklahoma State. Go Pokes. If you need a defense to run over, we're your people.
So I want to give people an idea as well as the store. We talked about store picks. However, I think you need to explain the gravity of what it is, because if anybody that hasn't known about Lincoln Road before, you can actually go and check out their Facebook page, and every once in a while, Jamie or his wife will actually post. They say, "Here's the store picks that we have available," and it's I think like you're into like the 40s of different things that you have available, maybe even more.
Yeah, I don't even know how many we have right now. We started getting into more with rums and brandy and even tequila. We've got some tequila barrels we've done recently that'll be coming in that we're excited about. And so it's just starting to branch out completely with everything and looking at trying to make it where this is the only place you can get that product. You come in and you like that bottle, it's a single barrel product that you can only get here. And that's really kind of creates, a following of customers and makes them decide that, hey, we're going to the beach from Arkansas. We're going to take a detour and go by Lincoln Road on our way down and grab some bottles of bourbon on the way, or tequila or brandy.
So a question that I'm gonna have for you is, how do you get your hands on all this? Because I know a few liquor stores here in town, and their reps will come to them and say like, yeah, you can get maybe 1 barrel a year. And then I know other people out in California, and they're like, I think there's only 2 barrels that are allocated for the entire state, except you've got, tons of this stuff. So whose palms are you greasing to make this happen?
Luckily, we were one of the first ones in line buying barrels. Like I always joke and say, we were buying barrels when buying barrels wasn't cool. So now that it's the thing to do, everybody's trying to buy barrels and trying to copy what other stores are doing, which I don't blame them, but luckily, some have held their loyalty to us. Some distilleries have. Some have cut us back.
So who's cut you back?
I wouldn't say it's necessarily the distilleries. It's more or less the reps wanting to. They call it spread it around. We've been cut back a little bit from Buffalo Trace. We don't get as many as we used to, but that is what it is. Four Roses has cut us back a little bit, but I say a little bit. It's not much. We used to go in there and can buy sits at one time. If we tried 12 or 14 barrels and we liked, 5 or 6 of them, we'd buy them. But now that's changed. It's 1 per.
Now, does that piss you off a little bit? Because you kind of brought a lot of these people to the dance, and now they're telling you, that, hey, thanks, but we got this other guy over here we want to take care of.
You got to remember, I'm in Mississippi, so we're not the biggest market. So I'm just happy with what I can get. When we're buying, like he's talking about 2 barrels for the whole state of California, and we may buy 4 or something like that for the year. So we're getting double their allocation when we're in a market of, I don't know, say 3 million people in the whole state, where you got cities out there that have 3 times, 4 times that population. So we're not the biggest, state on the market.
When you say reps, you're not competing it. You're not dealing with someone in Mississippi. You're talking about the
No, I'm talking about
crap.
this Mississippi allocation.
Okay.
So the Mississippi allocation, they'll come in and divide that up amongst their top Sazerac accounts.
And so I guess another question to kind of tail off on that is, has the allocation just for Mississippi decreased, and then that means that you're getting decreased, or has it kind of stayed the same, and then you kind of have to share the pie with more people now?
I think it's probably increased, to be honest, and I just have to share the pie with more people. You know, we have some stores across the country that'll call distilleries and complain about us. Why are they getting so many barrels? Why are they doing this? Why are they allowed to do that? And it just is, it's frustrating for us because they're calling and complaining, but it also should be, you know, a compliment, I guess, that we're doing something right, that people are noticing us.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a crybaby move, wouldn't you think, that you're going to go and tattle on the rep because somebody's got an extra barrel that you didn't?
I guess so. Yeah, you're right. But it gets nitpicking, as y'all see. Y'all see the bourbon world we're in right now.
And Fred brought up a good point too about, you know, bringing these people to the dance. So give people an idea of, when did you actually start getting into the private barrel game before anybody else? So like, what year was that
Probably
you can remember?
About 10 years ago. So probably we started picking Elijah Craig barrels. Actually, our first barrel was a Jack Daniel's single barrel we did right after Hurricane Katrina. And we did a portion of the proceeds went to a Katrina fund back in 2005. But we didn't buy another barrel until probably 2008, 2009. And we started buying Elijah Craig barrels at that time from Heaven Hill. And, you know, bring them in. And then we were like, wow, we sold through that in 2 months. That's pretty good. You know, at that time it was $22 a bottle, $19.99, 22. And so nothing for a 12-year-old single barrel, as Fred was saying earlier. I mean, it's an easy sell. Here, I got a 12-year-old single barrel I picked. It's fantastic. I think you should buy it. And people were buying it. And then we bought it, trickled into like Henry McKenna, Eagle Rare single barrel was one that we did. And like, I think we were the first one in Mississippi to do an Eagle Rare, Buffalo Trace, and Weller barrels from Buffalo Trace. But then it's kind of we've been cut since then. Yep. But luckily, Eddie Russell, Four Roses, Knob Creek, those guys aren't cutting us. We're still allowed to kind of do about the same, you know, on some level. Like I said, not Four Roses, we can't go in and buy 6 to 8 at a time, but we're still able to pick up a decent number of barrels compared to other people in the state, luckily.
And so you've been around the barrel game for quite some time. So over the course, you've seen them change. You've seen ones that have come online, like the Makers 46 program. You've seen things that have died off, that have come, that we kind of talked about earlier, from Buffalo Trace or Heaven Hill. What do you kind of think is, I'll put this in 2 parts, and I'll ask the first one. What program right now do you think does the best job for single barrels and gives you that great experience?
I knew you were going to ask me that question. So they're all different. Let me say that. So I took a group up a couple weeks ago to pick barrels, and I showed them. They got to go to 2 different distilleries and pick, one with Eddie Russell and one at 1792. So they can see the difference of the two. Not that one was better than the other. It's pretty cool being in the Rick House with Eddie Russell and going around and trying different barrels. And, you know, you get one glass, and then if you decide you want to try them blind side by side at the end, you got to go back and say, all right, this one, and everybody's sharing the glass. At Four Roses, it's cool because you get to sit there and try different recipes side by side.
Now, Josh is a listener to the show, so don't you badmouth him right now.
I'm not badmouthing Josh. We did a pretty cool thing with
Josh Hollifield, everybody from 1792, for those who are unaware.
Yeah, Josh is great. We got to go into there on that Friday, and we ended up blending a couple 1792 foolproof barrels together, and they came out pretty fantastic. So we're excited about that. So he kind of came up with that idea a little bit with us as we were trying to blend, but we didn't take too long doing that. But that's something that's just cool that you can do, because you can't just go into Russell's Reserve and say, I'm going to blend 2 barrels together. I don't think they're equipped for that. They could do, but I know where 1792 does that small batch now blend. So I can easily see how someone could sit there for 8 hours and try to figure out which ones they want to blend together, trying all this stuff. But to answer your question on which one's the best program right now, I don't think there is just one that's the best. I think that they're all different, and you're just able to see when you go up there to try what it is for taste Knob Creek barrel proof, and that's going to be proof down to 100. Or
so I hear what you're saying. Like, you're
playing the politics game.
Yeah,
you're playing the politics game.
You're playing the role, right? Of making sure you don't piss anyone off. But
I'm trying not to get cut, Fred. I'm trying not to get
I understand.
Cut.
But I appreciate that. I'm sensitive to that. But we both know that it's different now than it was 5 years ago.
Oh, absolutely.
5 years ago, I imagine you were probably rejecting barrels. Now you're just, do you approach this the same that you did, as you did 5 years ago, or are you a little bit more accepting?
Yes, we still look like, so when I'm tasting barrels, so when people ask me, they say, Russell Reserve, what are you going and looking for at Russell Reserve? You picked a lot of barrels at Russell Reserve. And I always tell them, when you find it, you'll know. And that's kind of how I feel about it. So when I'm going in and I'm tasting, I'm looking for a bigger mouthfeel, some of that complexity that you talked about earlier. And I'm a big finish guy. So I want it to hang out and be nice on the back end and still chew and taste on it in a good way. Not that I'm just burning alcohol on my chest and tongue there. So, but that's kind of what I look for. And I mean, now sometimes you're taking the best of what's there. So yeah, you could be acceptable more on some, but I don't really think, there may have been a couple that we've just accepted, but not many in my opinion. Because I hate to put my name on something that's just not good.
How often have you rejected, barrel samples?
I've done it twice on the barrel samples. I usually go to the distillery because I want them to know that I'm making a commitment to drive 9 hours to come see you. So I'm putting this time and effort in. So at least you can do is roll out good barrels for me. So
like when they do roll them out and then you taste through the ones that they roll, you taste through what they rolled out. Do you ever say, I don't like these, give me something else. Let's go in the warehouse. Let's find the sweet spot that I'm looking for. I mean, how do you approach it when you don't get what you like?
I always ask if they have any other ones laying around. It's kind of the way.
It's like this. It's basically what people walk into the store and ask you, like, "Hey, Jimmy, you got any bottles in the back?"
Well, no. I got a funny call the day. They called and said, "Hey, do you have any Pappy laying around?" And I was like, "No, I don't have any just laying around." So no, I approached it that way. I go in and kind of say, with Eddie, you just keep trying. Four Roses, there's usually, 6, 7, depending on how many recipes they've got out there that you're trying through. And usually to me, there's at least definitely a good one in that bunch. Sometimes I've heard people say that they have been there and they haven't had a good one in that bunch. Knob Creek usually has a few extras laying around if you're, buying enough. Like we have. I mean, we bought 5 of those this past year from Knob Creek. So I feel like they're there. You just have to kind of look for them, I guess.
You're really throwing a wrench in the Knob Creek process, because the way that they work is they've got 3 barrels. They're laid out red, green, blue, and then you've got tasting glasses that are actually etched red, green, blue. And you're telling them to bring out more barrels, and they're like, "We've got no more colors left. Like you're screwing with us here, Jamie."
Well, we're usually going in saying we're going to buy a couple barrels, so we get to try 3 to 6. So we're trying a few more because we're usually buying more.
See, that's the smart move right there. You got to come in and just start bringing in like envelopes full of cash and saying, "Don't worry, we're not here. We're not here to mess around."
That's the play.
That's right. That's right.
And there was one thing that you had kind of talked about with the 1792, and you were saying that you're starting to do blending. Now, This isn't the first time I've heard of a store going this way, because they have the opportunity, as you mentioned yourself, and you have a choice of some good barrels in front of you. However, you always want to sit there and think, what if? What if we blended these two together? Are you looking at blending because are single barrels getting boring, or is it because it's just something unique that, hey, I can buy multiple barrels now and I can just put them together?
Well, we took our allocation instead of going a couple times a year. Let me backtrack a little bit on one thing that we talked about briefly, then I'll answer your question. What is getting harder to do is it's getting harder to get into the distilleries to pick a barrel. So like when I scheduled my 1792 pick and the Russell Reserve pick I did at the end of September, I scheduled those in March, beginning of March, or that would never have happened to us. That hadn't happened to us in the past. When I called Eddie or would, try to schedule with Eddie, it was like, hey, I'm going to be up there in 4 weeks. Do you have any time to meet? We can pick a barrel. He'd be like, sure, come on up. Not anymore. It's just completely changed with that. I think Knob Creek Rye has pushed their program further back where you got to start planning 6 to 7 months ahead of time. The same with Four Roses. You got to really start planning ahead on your trips. It's not this last minute stuff anymore like we used to could do. And so that's changed. So when I got my allocation for 1792, I had to book it in September. Well, I had 3 barrels to pick. So we ended up taking one that was a bottled and bond, and then we decided with these 2 full proofs that they were fantastic blended together. It was just a dumb luck, I would say. One of the guys said, hey, have you ever thought about blending these? And I said, no, I haven't. And I knew when we did a small batch, you got to blend 2 barrels together to do a 1792 small batch now. So that's not something that I've ever been, big part of doing. I know Ditson obviously considered a master blender. I know Ed Bly's done a lot of blending lately with some of the stuff he's done. I know, I guess I always butchered up Julio's in Massachusetts has done some blending with some of their barrel picks, but this is the first time we've done it. It's not something that we're all of a sudden trying to go down that road to do, because like I said earlier, I would be sitting there the way I am trying to make it perfect and sit there for, 5 or 6 hours instead of, an hour and a half.
Kenny, we're kind of getting back to a spot in the 1950s and 60s where these stores were actually getting their own private labels. Like they would do these picks like this, but then it would evolve into their own label. And we've seen that with Delilah's. Jack Rose has been working on something similar. There's been a lot of Liquor Barn has their own private label, and Flatboat. Kroger
Costco
has their own. Costco. I mean, there's a lot of private labels, but you saw it in the 50s and 60s with these smaller guys too. And Jamie, I'm curious, the next step is for you to have your own label. Are you looking into something like that?
We've talked about it. We haven't really tackled it head on yet. It's just been a conversation, but it hasn't been anything that we've found the right partner with, I guess.
So what you're saying is you've been getting no on that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right. It doesn't sound like you're having a problem getting the barrels. Maybe it's having a problem saying, can I have these barrels, but not under your label name? That's
right. That's right. And I know with Bardstown Bourbon Company coming on board, there's opportunity there to do it. But, that's a big chunk of change you got to put out there.
How much?
I think it's around 1,000. You got to commit to anywhere from 1,000 to 2,000 barrels.
And how much is that, like, per barrel?
You're probably looking around 900 to 1,000 a new make.
So it's a little bit of change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. Sure is. A couple $1 million.
I'm guessing the Mississippi State Bank isn't going to be lending you to help you out there with those barrels.
No, they won't give us loan on our inventory.
Really?
Because they don't have a liquor permit. So, yeah, the challenge of being in Mississippi.
Speaking of Mississippi, and we were kind of talking about this a little bit earlier, and you had mentioned that people will go on a road trip and they'll stop by and they'll be like, okay, I gotta hit Lincoln Road. I gotta go 30 minutes out of the way just to go and check out this store. Now, do you think that you've kind of put Heidesburg on the map a little bit with bourbon in general?
I wouldn't say like the town, like in general, because we've had a lot of good things here with Southern Miss. Obviously, I would say Brett Favre may have put us on the map, but maybe in the bourbon world, we have done that, but not in the whole scheme of everything overall.
So how far away is like the nearest major city? Not to shit on and say Heidelberg's not a major city.
No, we're not. New Orleans is 86 miles.
So, I mean, for my opinion, I mean, I think it's very impressive because you think about it and you're like, you're not Atlanta, you're not Louisville or Lexington that are kind of just, not to say Louisville and Lexington are major, but major in regards of bourbon. And so you've kind of found this ability to be able to say, I can have this store pick paradise in the middle of Mississippi that maybe that people, it's kind of like this, like you said, it's Fred kind of ventured to it earlier. It's just this kind of little hidden gem now. That's
right. We've been fortunate with where we are that we're about an hour and a half between a lot of little bit bigger cities than us. You know, we're not far from Mobile. Birmingham's like 3 hours, which that's a trek, but we have a lot of people coming from there going to New Orleans. You know, we've got Nashville, people coming south from there. I know that says Nashville, that's 5 hours away, but still we have where people are traveling a lot more these days. So it is nice to have become a destination shop, as I call it.
So there's one question that came in from Dave, who's our good friend at Rarebird 101, and he said some of the Lincoln Road picks are credited to Misty. Explain exactly who Misty is.
So Misty's my wife. She enjoys drinking wine, so she's a wine drinker, but she has a fantastic palate and knows what she likes when it comes to bourbon, and she's looking for specific things and specific points that it hits on her palate and her, you know, mid palate that she looks for. And when she does, she knows it and she says this is the one.
Nice.
So we've got the Misty pick. You've got a pick that you've done with Dixon. Are you looking to kind of take this and say, I think that there's a market for more of these like collaboration picks rather than just something I do myself? Absolutely.
I 100%. I think there's a market for collaboration picks. You know, with me and her doing it, I get a lot of questions all the time. Well, which one's Misty's favorite? You know, you talked about earlier, we have 40 or 50 different barrel picks in the store. And a lot of times she hasn't had it. Like, she wasn't with me on that pick, so she hasn't had it. So most of the time that she's with us, her name is on it, so people know that she was involved with it. Because she does have a better palate than I do. Women do have, in my opinion, have fantastic palates. Most of them have better palate than men.
I'd agree with that. In fact, there's been some joking in some past barrel picks that people would, you know, put their marriage on the quality of a barrel, you know, saying like, if it's not as good as I'd say it is when it's bottled, then, you know, I'll sign the divorce papers. So people, the husband-wife couples tend to take these barrel picks very seriously when they do them together.
I'm just glad that she comes along with me and enjoys it, and she can pick a fantastic barrel.
So let's take a look at, like, you're involved in a lot of other categories. You're obviously known for bourbon, but is there another category that you see with the same kind of passion and fan base as bourbon right now?
So if you'd have asked me that probably about 3 or 4 months ago, I'd have been rum. And I still think rum is a tremendous category that's growing, and the possibilities of getting some of these distilleries in the Caribbean on board with single barrel program. Like, we've been talking, you know, obviously Campari owns Russell's Reserve, so I talked with them about Appleton doing single barrel program, but they move slow. You know, the big corporations like Pernod Ricard and Campari and those guys, they move a little bit slower than the rest because they're not seeing that. They're worried about jumping through the hoops that they have to jump through. But we've been seeing a lot of high-end tequila sales recently, which has been kind of interesting to us. I mean, in the 100, you know, in the over $100 range, you know, which is unusual, but we're seeing a shortage on our end of like Don Julio 1942 was just thrown on allocation for us. So now it's on allocation because of the shortage of the agave plant. So that could be something that we see in the future coming is tequila shortage possibly.
Tequila Pursuit coming to an iTunes near you.
That's right.
And, hey, you never know. There could be Tequila Curious in the book form. So
we're going to come out from all angles. But
that's right.
We got to change the subject because I have no idea what I'm talking about when it comes to tequila.
That's okay. We'll take care of you, Kenny. So what I'm hearing is vodka's not doing very well, Jamie?
Vodka is vodka. I mean, Tito's is the elephant in the room right now. I mean, it is just by far and away. I mean, what they've been able to do is just impressive. I mean, it is just, we probably sell 10 to 1 Tito's to anything else right now. It's just like, it just blows my mind at how well that they've been able to do with their basic packaging, and everybody loves it. It's good. It's good vodka. It's at $20, and you can't beat it.
Fred's gonna have a brain aneurysm if you keep going.
Yeah.
I was hoping he was about to diss vodka, so that's why I set him up, and then he compliments him. So, lesson learned there. It pays the bills, right? So
that's right. That's exactly right.
Let's go back to bourbon. Thank God. I want to talk specifically about Maker's Mark's barrel selection program.
Okay.
I have tried to explain that thing to people, and they look at me like I'm from Mars. How do you, because you've done some picks there, how have you explained that? Because it's such a cool experience, but it's so impossible to explain. Like even bourbon geeks, they have a hard time understanding it until they experience it.
It is, and I had trouble understanding it until I experienced it, and it was a fantastic experience to be able to sit there. It made me appreciate of what people do that are actually blending stuff together to make good whiskey. So understanding that and trying to explain that to them is a kind of I don't know. So the way I explain it is saying, all right, you have Maker's 46. It's aged in these staves for 6 weeks to 8 weeks. And then they have several other staves that have different flavor profiles, different taste profiles, different complexities that they do the same with for those. And then we go through and taste those and blend those together to make the bourbon or whiskey that we're looking for, which obviously is bourbon. So what we did recently with ours was we took a bottle of our previous pick in, and everybody was like, well, why don't you just do the same stage? It's going to be the same. And I was like, no, it's not going to be the same whiskey. And they're like, what do you mean it's not going to be the same whiskey? And I said, well, because it's going to be from a different distillate date. It's different proof. I mean, this one was 107 when we tried it cast strength, which was a lower proof for them. And so we went off of what our basic one that we first did, and then changed it a little bit to have that more big mouthfeel and creamy finish that we wanted. So basically I kind of explain it as you got 5 different whiskeys in front of you, and you're trying to blend them together to make it a better whiskey. I don't know if I explained that well or not, but it is a tricky explanation there.
By sticking staves in the barrel. So
yes.
Yeah.
It's the Voltron of whiskeys. You gotta,
I like that.
See?
I like that.
You gotta bring them all together and figure out if it's the yellow line and the red line and blue line, and make them all into one that's going to be better than the sum of its parts.
I love that.
For anybody that's like an 80s kid out there that used to love that and might get that one.
Yeah.
So I want to change it up a little bit and kind of talk about the retail side. And because, you are a package store after all, you gotta deal with the calls of Pappy that come in every single day. But I kind of want to get an idea of what does the average bourbon shopper really look for versus that's the whiskey or bourbon aficionado. What are they looking for when they're coming to your store?
A lot of times, of course, now we're getting allocated on just the basic bourbons, like of course, everybody comes in looking for Buffalo Trace products, no matter what. I mean, everybody wants either Buffalo Trace, Weller, any of those products, the Blantons, all that stuff. That's the big elephant in the room. And we have customers that travel from like Jackson to the coast, which are cities that are not far from us, that come in and they'll they'll come in all the time, and that's the only thing they ask for. We always ask them, like, what can I help you find? And a lot of people are not, they're closed-minded because they just think this is it. And so some of the regular customers know our experience that we've had and our knowledge, and so they'll listen to us and try different things. But some of the bourbon aficionados, they won't. Some of them are just closed. They're just closed off looking for this. We try to push them to barrel picks. The problem with some of the barrel picks is majority of the barrel picks are over 100 proof. So that runs into a guy that's an everyday bourbon drinker. It's hard for him to swallow going into 110 proof Russell's Reserve or 120 when you tell them that up front. But you say, hey, you can add your own ice or water to it to bring it down to whatever proof you enjoy drinking it at. But that still is the challenge that we run across, is getting these guys onto some of the barrel picks because of the proof. You talk to some guys and you say, oh, Wild Turkey 101, and they're like, oh, no, I don't want that at all. They hear 101 proof. So when you go from 101 to 110, 115, 120, that's a challenge. But the good thing is that we do have some of the bourbon aficionados that understand that and will come in and pick those up. But the everyday bourbon guys we're still trying to bring them on along. And like I said before, we're in Mississippi, so we're trying to teach and trying to educate on our end. And one challenge that we have is I wish we could do more of is in-store tastings. We can do one a quarter, and that's it. So
is that a law?
Yes.
Oh, for fuck's sake!
I know. I mean,
so when you do have it, it's a fucking party.
Somewhat. We try to, but it has to be opened that day. We have to file for the permit 30 days in advance. We have to send a report in after that. It's just a big challenge if we could just say, hey, I'm not in the business of getting people drunk and saying, hey, here, I'm going to give you a bunch of free booze. Let me get you drunk and you leave my store and drive drunk. That's not what I want to do. But if I have someone trying to decide which barrel pick they want to try or buy that day, and so, hey, I have all these open already. Do you want to try any of these? I'll pour you a half-ounce pour and you try them, and then you decide, And, of course, if the same guy keeps coming in every day trying to, hey, I need to try a new barrel pick, then we'll catch on to that. But
I could just imagine these Mississippi legislators debating this issue, before the state, like how the hell are they rationalizing, quarterly tasting? Oh, liquor store can only get one tasting per quarter. That stuff just pisses me off. That's an absolute travesty for what you're trying to do, Jamie. And you're trying to educate people. You're trying to, teach people how to taste good bourbon, and they're just hamstringing you. That's just ridiculous.
I agree. They don't. I try to explain to them that if we could let these people try this product, they might buy more, which means more tax dollars for the state. But they're worried about everybody leaving the store drunk.
What they're actually worried about is what their mamas are going to think if they vote for it. I know. I know boys from Mississippi, and that's all they care about is what their mamas think. So, maybe the next generation, you'll get it passed in 50 years.
Yeah, I hope so. I don't think I'll be around by then, but
you sound like a young man.
Ooh.
You got a few more years of retail underneath your hat. You could still keep going. So I kind of want to talk about that retail side just a little bit more, because I see it here in Louisville all the time. You've got these, I call them vultures. They're essentially, they'll go to a store, they'll kind of look around, and then they'll just leave. They might talk to somebody. They might say, hey, is there anything, you got anything new? Anything in the back, whatever it is. How often do you get that? And then is it just annoying when people come in and they just kind of look around and leave?
Yeah, it is. Usually I'll try to stop them before they go out the door and be like, was there not something you could find? Because we greet everybody that comes in the door. That's a big thing for us, customer service.
Welcome to Moe's. Absolutely.
Absolutely. How are you doing? Can I help you find anything? What are you looking for? And a lot of people say, no, I'm just looking. And then after they shop around for 5 or 10 minutes, I'll come up and I'll ask them myself again and say, is there something specific that you're looking for? And, and then then they come out with, well, I got this list here that my buddy sent me. And, of course, it's all the Pappy, all the BTAC, the limited edition stuff, the birthday bourbon right now has been the hot one that we've had a lot of people asking about because they know it was already released, which we haven't gotten ours yet. And so it's just is something that keeps coming. And I hate to say this, but I was not in the best of mood the other day, and I had a guy, like you're saying, a vulture coming in, and every time he comes in, he's looking for one product, and he finally said the other day, and I said, well, every time you come in, that's all you ask for, and you don't buy anything else from us. And it finally, his eyes got big, and he was like, well, and he kind of mumbled a little bit, and then he bought some other stuff, and then I of course sold him a bottle that he was asking for. I said, I do have it for you, but you ask for this every time. And so one of my guys looked at me and said, I'm surprised that you said something to him about that. And I said, well, at some point it just wears on you, as store owner, it just wears on you, the number of calls and stuff we have. And a lot of times my first question to when someone calls on the phone is, well, have you ever been in my store? And they'll be like, no, I haven't, but I was planning on coming down there. And I was like, oh, you're planning on coming down to pick up the bottle of Pappy 15 that you're asking me about. And so I mean, I reserve those bottles for my customers who help me pay the light bill. The guys that shop on me on a weekly basis. And if I had any advice to people looking for those bottles,
buy a lot of Tito's vodka.
No, not buy a lot of Tito's vodka.
For God's sakes, Kenny, come on, man.
But you have your store that you go to and build that relationship with that owner in that store. Stay with that store. Don't just go around to every store in town or every store and be like, hey, you got this, you got that. I mean, that's just the way I think, because I have my regular customers that have been regular customers for years that I take care of. And I'm going to continue taking care of those guys.
Yeah, it kind of seems it's the same story no matter where it is. You got to support the stores. You just can't walk in, ask for something, and leave and expect one day that they're going to be like, oh, yeah, you've been so persistent. Here you go.
That's right. That's right.
It's a little bit too, Jamie, it's a little bit too kind of like the barrels that, the situation you've been through. Like you brought a lot of these distillers to the dance, and now, you're having to compete with, Johnny Newcomer in California. And, you've got a lot of customers been with you for a long time, and it would be a disservice to them if you were to give that Pappy 15-year-old to the guy who's been supporting you for 5-6 years.
That's right. You're exactly right on that. If I just gave it to this guy that came in and not the guy that's been there for 5 or 6 years.
Do you foresee an end in the craziness?
I hope so. I don't really see one because I see what our we're on allocation on a lot of products that I would think that are not that old. When I say not that old, that are 6 years old, and we're on allocation with those products. And I feel like this bourbon shortage and bourbon craze has been going on for a little bit longer than that. They've got to be catching up at some point. I hope is the only thing that I can say. Because it's just getting more and more frustrating for me and for other store owners and for customers that, we get some of them and we don't even put them out because I've got older customers that are, late 60s, 70s that have been drinking this stuff for 7, 8, 9, 10 years. And now I'm going to say, oh, you can't get your favorite whiskey anymore. I'm sorry. Even though you've been buying it here for 10 years. No, I'm going to set that in the back for those guys that have been buying it for 10 years because they were the ones that were buying it before anybody else was buying it.
Yeah.
And they get upset with me if I don't have it for them.
How often does that happen?
I try not to let it happen, but it does happen probably, once every 6 weeks or so.
I mean, are you just like, I swear it's not on me. I'm waiting for the case to come in.
That's exactly right. I've got it on order. It's on order. I promise you.
So I'll kind of tail off with one last question on that. And is there any sort of new trends that you're seeing with inside of the whiskey market from the retail side? Whether it's newer labels, sourced whiskey, craft whiskey. I don't know. What do you see as the new trend? That
Hold on. Jamie, doesn't it sound like when he says craft whiskey, he's saying crap whiskey? Did you hear that? I swear, every time he says craft whiskey, I feel like he's saying crap whiskey.
It was borderline there. I thought I heard. I was like,
I love you, Kenny.
I need to clear the saliva out of my mouth. Then craft.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you. That was rude.
No, I'll start pronouncing those T's a little bit more, I guess.
I feel like the craft trend has kind of come and gone a little bit, in my opinion, from what we're seeing here. I'm seeing more sourced whiskey trend coming in. Obviously with barrel bourbon, and I think those guys are doing a good job with what they're doing. And from talking to Joe, I mean, they don't have like contracts with people. They're just able to go find it and buying other people's stuff from other people that have bought it. Like, for instance, they may be able to buy some, let's just use Heaven Hill stuff that they're buying from a third party that already had bought it from Heaven Hill, but they're buying it from them at a profit for that third party that bought it from Heaven Hill or whoever it was. So I think that those guys are able to doing some pretty cool stuff. And then you've seen some new ones come on. I mean, like, obviously I think the first ones to the table was Willet with the source whiskey. And I may be skipping some, Fred will know more on this, but like Smooth Ambler was the other one that came to the table with a bunch of good barrels from MGP. And then you had Bell Mead was a trend there for a while. And then now you're seeing, always butchered as Blom Brothers, I think, doing some whiskey picks now that have been really hot lately. I'm seeing some. We don't have those in Mississippi, unfortunately, because we're that small market. But I'm seeing the trend there with those guys. So in my store, we're seeing more of the source whiskey trend on the barrel bourbon side. But I feel like the craft whiskey sales have really, really dropped off for us, which, kind of goes hand in hand with what y'all said earlier. Fred said earlier.
You kind of just brought up another thing that it's always kind of a hot button that I like to bring up, and maybe you can kind of give your take on it a little bit too, is that you have a lot of these craft distillers that are starting with a sourced MGP product, and then they want to bring their own product online. However, it seems that there's this imbalance, if you will. And so when they run out of the MGP product, and then they can only say it's a 9 or 10 or 11-year-old whiskey, and then they got to put out their 3, 4, or 5-year-old whiskey, it sort of doesn't meet the expectations that some of the consumer market is starting to see. So what's your kind of feeling on that of people that are starting with MGP and then trying to either blend in their own product or just do a cold cut and then start selling their own product?
I think that's a tough thing for those guys. If, in my opinion, I would prefer is for them to realize that their whiskey's not old enough yet to be sold on its own and still go out there, because undoubtedly there's still MGP products out there that you can go buy. Now, granted, the price may be higher than what it was when you were buying it before. Just charge more. I mean, I know some people are like, well, I like to be under the $100 price point. Well, as y'all see on the secondary, I mean, people are buying stuff left and right for crazy amounts of money that's okay. They're spending $250, $300 on bottles that are just okay. They're not great. They're buying them because of a name or whatever it is. But in my opinion, I think that they should continue trying to buy that source whiskey until their whiskey is of age to sell on its own. I mean, or make gin or make vodka to pay your bills, or rum, pay your bills until you can get by when your whiskey's of age. In my opinion, that's what I would do, because I would just not want to put out a young product that tastes grainy and craft and is just, I don't know, like you get into some of these products and you can taste the youth in them. I mean, y'all know that. Y'all have had enough of them, I would think, where y'all try them and see, and, it's just not there yet.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So sorry, Fred, go ahead.
I was going to say, it puts, you always I root for these people personally. And I recently wrote a story for Forbes, and it was, the headline was something like craft whiskeys that disappoint or something like that. And it really caused a firestorm with a lot of people who make the whiskey, because we're different. We're doing things this way and that way. And it's hard for you, Jamie, because you're looking at it from like, what does the consumer want? and you probably want to support that little guy, but at the end of the day, you got to pay the light bill, like you said. So do you feel like it is not a viable business option for you to be pushing craft whiskey?
It comes down to a point of saying, why is this whiskey at 3 years old $100 or $125 a bottle or whatever it is? And then you can go and get something like Elijah Craig or Henry McKenna that's 10 to 11 to 12 years old, or whatever the blend is in it nowadays, at $30 a bottle. So I think that really is the challenge of me trying to recommend and them saying, hey, well, what do you think of this $80 bottle? And I'm like it's a 4-year-old whiskey compared to something that's 10. That's the challenge that I run across, in my opinion. Because I know with some products that we've been doing barrel picks of lately, there's been some that we're getting that are 6 to 7 months younger than they were. And that is, in my opinion, is making a difference. And I it's just 6 or 7 months, but on some of it, you can taste the difference in that time. It seems like that additional 6, 7 months, 8 months in the barrel gets them another season or two. And it just smooths it out a little bit more. So when you're talking about a 3-year-old whiskey compared to a 10-year-old whiskey, it's just night and day.
Yeah.
I mean,
oh, one last thing I want to bring up, because you said the word, not I, but you had said secondary, and it's always fun to talk about retail side and secondary. So I kind of want to get your opinion on your thought of stores that basically get all these allocations, maybe not all these allocations, maybe they get a few bottles, but the bottles they do get in, everybody pays attention to the market and they price it a little bit above the market because they think somebody's going to pay it. So I kind of want to get your thoughts on it.
My thoughts on it are that my bottles that I get that are allocated that'll go at those crazy prices will go to my regular customers who are supporting me, and it's a reward for those guys to be able to come in and pay retail on those products. Is kind of the way I look at it. Thank you for shopping with me and spending this much throughout the year. You spent $10,000 a year with me on all these wines and these different scotches and bourbons that you're buying. And so here you go. I have this bottle for you. It's kind of how I do it. Sometimes I don't even know. I just call them and say, hey, are you interested in buying this? Mm-hmm. And, they're like, oh yes, I would love to get that. Thank you so much.
Now, do you look at the secondary market as a healthy thing as well, because what something's valued at, and maybe they don't? Like, what's your take on it?
Yeah, I mean, it's always healthy to have an open market, especially when you have it's just supply and demand. It's simple economics 101. So that's going to drive, there's not enough supply, so the demand's going to come up and the price is going to come up higher. But on my end, if it's something that I can reward someone and make them more loyal to me, is how I look at it. But I think the secondary I can't say it's a good or bad thing. I think it's, it drives the prices of some stuff just astronomical. I mean, where you go into places and you see a bottle and you're like, oh, they got a bottle of Van Winkle. And you're like, oh shit, it's $750 for a 10-year-old, and no wonder that's still sitting there on the shelf.
But you don't ever think to yourself, like, I could have just sold these just a little bit higher and I could have had an extra mortgage payment taken care of.
No, I try not to think of it that way. Cause like I said, we don't get enough of it anyway to where it's like, I mean, when I'm saying I get maybe you get 3 to 6 bottles of some of these allocated products coming out now, especially. I mean, some of them have even gone to 3-bottle cases. So you're not getting a ton of it. And I'd rather make a customer happy that spent, I'll make the money up on the back end because they're going to be loyal to me.
Absolutely. All right. So with that, I think we should probably start wrapping this up. So Jamie, I want to say thank you again for coming on the show tonight. Give everybody a plug of where they can learn more about Lincoln Road Package Store, where they can find your store, as well as social media and stuff like that.
Yeah, so we have our Facebook page. You can search Lincoln Road Package Store. We also have a website. It's lincolnroadpackagestore.com. You can look at it. Now, it's not always completely up to date with our barrel pits because I'm the guy that has to do all that. But the best thing to do is just go to our Facebook page. And if you have any questions on anything, you can also private message us and we'll answer those questions as fast as we can.
Is it actually located on a road called Lincoln Road?
That's right. Lincoln Road and 28th Avenue. We're on the corner of Lincoln and 28th.
All right. So there wasn't a whole lot of thought going into the brand. It was pretty easy there.
Hey, come on now.
Hey, I mean, absolutely. It was, hey, location based. So people were like, where's Lincoln Road Package Store? We're on Lincoln Road.
There you go.
Boy, between the two of us, you're not going to have, not much self-esteem after all this said and done, Jamie.
I just appreciate y'all having me on.
Absolutely. No, it was great. And thank you for taking us through a lot of those different, I mean, we ran the gamut with you tonight. We talked about secondary, talked about craft whiskey. We talked about retail stores. We talked about barrel picks. We're going to probably have to set up a second episode here at some point to go even more with you.
Maybe we do a barrel pick together. How about that?
I like collaborations.
Yeah,
absolutely. There we go.
Especially if Jamie's paying for it.
Awesome. So, Jamie, thank you again for joining us. Make sure you follow him on social media as well as follow us, Bourbon Pursuit, on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And also, you can follow Fred Minnick at Bourbon Pursuit. Follow Fred Minnick on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well. Also, subscribe to Bourbon Plus if you haven't yet. It's a great magazine. Everybody's going to enjoy it. And if you do like the show, you want to support us, we had, I think, almost 15 viewers on at some point tonight, and they got to see it live as it was happening. Support the show on Patreon, patreon.com/Bourbon Pursuit. And that's how you get to ask all these fun questions to our guests. And we don't have to sit here and think of every single one. So we appreciate all our Patreon supporters being able to do that as well. And if you have any more show suggestions, things you'd like to see, questions for Fred or I or Ryan, who couldn't be here tonight, send us an email, team@bourbonpursuit.com. With that, I want to say, Jamie, Fred, thanks again for everybody joining in tonight. It was a pleasure, and we'll talk to everybody next week.
Cheers.
Cheers.
There we go, man. You did great.
Thank you.
That was awesome.
It actually went a little bit longer than I thought it was going to go, too. I was looking at the time. I was like, we're supposed to cut it like 10 minutes ago, but it was just all these other thoughts that started coming to my head.
Those good old Mississippi boys, they can string it together, I tell you. But
we try our best.
So my little boy has been in my office here, being such a good boy. Oscar, come here. I want to show you. I want to show you to my friends here.
Show them what you've been doing for the past hour.
Here's my microphone. You want to say hi to him?
Hi.
Hey.
How are you doing?
Can you say hi?
Hi.
Yeah,
what are you watching?
He's been glued to the phone.
What you watching?
Playing games. Can you get me on the carpet?
Okay, he's already done with you guys.
I don't blame you.
Yeah, he's been a really good boy. So I gotta get him home and get him into bed. But you all, great show, Jamie. It's such a pleasure. I've always admired what you've done, and tonight only solidified that for me, especially with the whole loyalty to your customers. As a bourbon fan, that means a lot to me because, that's not the case for a lot of places.
Well, I appreciate it. That's all I've got here. I'm not in a big city, so I have to be loyal to keep my customers. So let me definitely send me the link on the Bourbon Plus magazine. I'd love to start selling it in the store and have the opportunity to spread it with my customers.
Yeah. Let's, I'll connect to you on email shortly. So.
Okay. That sounds good.
All right, brother.
All right. Thank you,
Fred.
Fred.
Great job, Kenny. See you later.
All right. Bye, Fred. Yep. Jamie, again, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm already kicking myself for not buying the other El Cantonada that you had tried selling me on, because I had only bought the Louis Pablo, but I may
have a bottle hiding around back here.
Well, it's okay. Believe me, I'm not going to ask for handouts or anything like that.
I'll get you one of the 88. We kind of had to cut that off a little bit just to see they were coming in. Orders. It's a good thing, but orders were coming in so fast. I just didn't want to, oversell.
How big are those barrels?
So the interesting thing that La Encantada does that nobody really knows is you don't have to buy the whole barrel. And I didn't know this either, is that you can buy 60 bottles. If you buy up to 60, they're fine with that. So for instance, I mean, they're going to be like, when we bought the Belle Meade Sherry barrel, it was like 450 bottles. And I was like, Jesus Christ, and like, so Sherry cask is big. So the same as the cognac cask. We did the Belle Meade cognac, and it was like over 300. We split with Carruthers in Nashville. And so they're roughly around that. I mean, we had one come in, I think, 337, I believe, and the other one was a little bit under that. So we had good yields, but they're also got to remember that they're kept in caves and not warehouses.
Yeah, man. It's always one of those things that like I'm starting to love some of those. But it seems like it's such a risk too, because they're not cheap bottles, and you don't know if they're going to be good or not. So. No,
well, it reminds me of Willet. I mean, it really reminds me of Willet, but with more disclosure, in my opinion. So these guys were buying, like, going around to these houses and people who are making them, like the Domaine Le Sable was only made in like 73, 74, and 76. So those are the only vintages that they made it, and they only make it when the grapes are, it's a good vintage for them. So that's a good thing, going in. But again, I mean, I love the disclosure of it, so you know where it's coming from. But it reminds me, like I said, of that what Willett was doing before anybody in the bourbon world was doing it. And I may be wrong on that. I don't know my history as much as like Fred does, but on that, it's pretty cool to see. We get did you see the discovery pack we got?
No, I didn't see that.
It was let's see. So they did a discovery pack, and it's 5 200 ml, so basically 5 half pints, and it's got a bottle from 4 different houses. So you have Le Sable, La Fresh, Del Casso, and Pibo, and then you have a 20-year of their, I'm assuming their blend, because it just says La Encantada on it. So it's a pretty cool little set for someone that wants to do it. The only problem is it's expensive. It's like
that's a package thing, not just like a barrel thing. Oh, cool! I didn't.
Yeah, it's a package thing. I saw on their Facebook page right after we selected our barrel, and I reached out to them and said, "Hey, can we get some of those?" And they said, "Yeah, how many you want?" And I then we bought like 18 of them. 18 individual kits. So it's a way for someone to be able to go in and try each different ones.
Because that's a tough one, because I know a lot of people go crazy for the Louis, because at least from what I understand is that it is aged in X whiskey casks or something like that. And so I think that's why it appeals to some more bourbon drinkers, but some of the other ones I'm not probably sure about. So I haven't really ventured out that way.
Well, I don't know if I have your cell or not, but I'll send you a picture of it. But the good thing about it is that it comes in a little wooden box. It has a sliding piece of plexiglass in front of it. And behind each bottle, it tells a little bit about the estate that it came from. And then it tells you what grapes are in there and all that stuff. So it's a pretty cool, nerdy thing for someone that's into brandy or, spirits in general. So, I mean, it is a pretty cool thing. So I'll send you a picture of it so you can see it and know exactly what I'm talking about. Like Domaine La Fresh, it's distilled from Baco 22A, whatever grape that is. Don't ask me to explain that.
I was going to say, don't ask
me to explain that. But I think the biggest thing with Pibo was, if I'm not mistaken, most of this is from the Folly Blanche grape, which is, I don't know, like, again, it's still all that's French to me. I don't know what that means, but I know that that's a different style of grape than the rest of them are making it from. Mm-hmm. So there is a reason why, in my opinion, like, okay, that's why this is more like the rye whiskey of brandy, in my opinion. And I always called the La Fresh as more of the wheated bourbon of brandy, because it's a little more softer and not as big and bold as the Pibo.
Yeah, I think whatever the fuck they're doing, or whoever got it started, I don't know if it was 1789B that did, but man alive, people are just starting to eat it up, and I kind of am too.
Oh, I am too. It's just the only thing that gets me is, man, the prices just keep going up through the roof. I mean,
but I mean, the other side of that, it's like you look at it, like how often or how much longer are we going to really get like 20 to 38-year-old brandy or Armagnac? Just like you're not going to be able to find that in maybe 5 or 10 years. Who knows? So it's kind of like you could be on the forefront of the next wave. Who knows?
Absolutely, I agree. And boy, you already see crazy prices on like the Chateau Le Baudes that you see. Like we've done some of those, and now that was one that we only had to buy a certain number of bottles, and they throw our label on them that are vintage stuff. But it was cool seeing from vintage to vintage of how they changed. I mean, like the 79 blows away the 80. You know, like the 75 is a little bit on the lighter side, but it's just the same with that I find out with the Sable that you get from Lion Cantata is that to me, that stuff's just so light, but it may be somebody's, you know, like I like my steak rare. Somebody might like theirs well done. It's just a totally different taste profile where I feel like if I open up a Le Sable, it'd be gone before I know it because it drinks so light and easy. I need someone to let me know I'm drinking.
Yeah, well, I need somebody to give me a slap on the face before I just blow another $1,000 on a credit card on like 6 or 7 bottles because it's so easy to do. That's what I know. Astor has some up right now, and I'm like, God, do I really need to buy this? Like, I have no idea if it's good or not, and then I'm really screwed if it's terrible. So
I've been avoiding them. Like, I see people post them like, don't click on the link, because I know once I do, I'm gonna end up with 2 bottles of each or whatever it is. So, I mean, I'm in the same boat as you are. I keep chasing them, especially when they come from Europe. I've found a couple in the 500 mLs from the Pivo. I keep chasing the Pivo because I know what it is, but the La Fresh really kind of was like, whoa, it shocked me at how complex and just rich it is. But I'll get you a bottle of it.
Well, we'll take it offline and we'll send you an email. I'd appreciate it. It'd be really awesome.
Not a problem, man. Anytime. I'll get you taken care of.
Cool. All right. So let's go ahead. We'll wrap it up because I'll let you get back to working or family life, or whatever you got going on.
Well, good. And I'm serious about if y'all want to do a barrel pick together, we can do that for sure.
Yeah, I think that'd be fun, man. Just kind of give us a shout next time you're headed to or got plans to be up here in Kentucky, and we'll definitely take some time and we'll all go together. It'd be fun.
Yeah, sounds good. Shoot me your cell. I may have it already, but shoot it to me in the email whenever we get offline.
Sounds good. Yeah, well, of course we'll get Jody to make us a sticker as well. We have to
absolutely. You got to. Got to.
All right, man. Take care.
All right. Talk to you later.
Bye-bye. Bye.